Hello YouTube! Today we're going to be discussing StarterWare and how to use it. So let's go ahead and get started with what is StarterWare. Well, StarterWare is essentially a bunch of code that was written by a TI, and their intention was to make it easier for the programmer to program. You don't have to know every single thing about the BeagleBone, or in this case the way they saw it, the AM335X processor, in order to program confidently and correctly. Essentially what this is called is an API. Now, APIs are basically to alleviate the programming needs from the programmer himself. A lot of the hardware is initialized through these APIs. The point of this is to make your program a little more abstract from the hardware itself. That way you don't have to be thinking about hardware configurations and things like that. How do we use it? Well, you definitely need to be reading the documentation. The documentation is very easy to understand as compared to some of these technical reference manuals. Now, you may need to look back at the technical reference manual if you don't understand exactly what the code is doing when you call it. Read the documentation. It's very helpful, and in this case, for StarterWare, it's very well documented. It's very easy to read, to understand. Let's go ahead and continue then. So, to use it physically, to use it in your software, you need to import the APIs into your integrated development environment, your IDE. Depending on what you're going to use, I recommend using Code Composer, but you can use Eclipse and GCC. I prefer using the TI compiler with Code Composer because they are the ones who made this API. Before we continue and go any further, I need you guys to know that programming in C is a must. All this code that is here is in C, and you need to understand C in order to analyze their code, because it is going to be crucial that you analyze their code. Is there any alternatives to StarterWare? Well, yes, there is, but that would mean you have to manually code everything. So, not really. As of right now, as far as I know, TI is the only one making these APIs for the AM335X. So in this video, I'm going to show you where to find the documentation, and I'm going to go over how to import the code, how to analyze the code within a Code Composer. It's essentially Eclipse, so it's very similar, and by doing so, I'm going to give you a small Code Composer tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. At this point, I'm going to assume that you have Code Composer and StarterWare installed on your PC. If you don't have that, click on the video on your screen right now, and it will take you to a video of how to install StarterWare and Code Composer. Let's go ahead and get started. I saved my StarterWare package on my home directory in a folder called AM3359 Workspace, and it's called StarterWare. I also made a backup in case I mess up this version. I can just copy right over it. Let's go ahead and navigate into it. The folder that you're going to want to look for first is called Docs. We'll go ahead and double click on Docs. From here, the main document you're looking for is User Guide. In the User Guide, you will have a detailed explanation of how to use every API available in the StarterWare package. There are many little things you can do with this API. Almost all the core functions that you're going to be interested in. So we'll go ahead and start off with GPIO v2. So this is 2 pages behind, so I'm going to jump to page 110. 109. And that should put me at 107. It tells you everything you need to know, the introduction to the modules that you're interested in. So here's what you're probably going to be using the most, the programming section. Whenever you are trying to get a certain API to work for you, you can come in here and read what it does. So let's say you want to use the GPIO pins. You're going to need to know that you need to activate the clocks and multiplex the pin. There are functions to do this, but as you can see here, they're not shown to you. So you're going to have to go look for them. And I'll show you this in an example file that comes in StarterWare for the BeagleBone Black. The rest of them are pretty much defined, and they're just step by step. They're very logical. So at this point, I'm going to put this off to the side so we can use it in a little bit. And we'll go ahead and open up Code Composer. My workspace is going to be the same workspace where I have my StarterWare. You should get a window like this. If this is the first time you open it, you'll get like a welcome window, but that's fine. It'll change your perspective when you make your first project. So we're going to go to File, and we're going to import a project. And right here, you're going to go to Code Composer Studio, and you're going to click on CCS projects. It'll open up this window where you're going to search a directory. Before we continue, we want to make sure we have all the libraries built for the BeagleBone. I should specify the BeagleBone Black. We'll go to Browse, and we'll click on StarterWare under our working directory because this is where I saved it. Go to Build ARM v7. Now at this point, just go ahead and click on CGT CCS, and we'll click OK. You're looking for 4 files. You're looking for drivers, for platform, system, and utils. And we hit finish. Now, if you're curious, you're going to open up these files and you're going to see what's in them. These are a lot of C files which contain the APIs which are defined in the user guide. So this is what I mean by you need to analyze everything in here. GPIO v2. We'll just take a quick glance at it, and you can see the module reset. And there's a lot of juicy information here that you can look at. You don't need to really look at this, but maybe you want to look at the name of the function and what its brief description is. And that will give you a good understanding of how to use the function and where to use it. Whereas the user guide gives you the steps that you need to follow in order to get the module that you're interested to work. We'll go ahead and take a step back, and we'll build the libraries that we need. So we'll right click on, we're going to do this one by one just to make sure they all get done. We'll right click, properties, and here where it says variant under general, you're going to type Beagle, and you should see it pop up on the side, BeagleBone Black, and we're looking at the Cortex A, and hit OK. We'll do that for the following 3. And that is it. You've prepared them to be built. Now, you can do this all at once, but like I said, I am going to do them one by one to make sure they all get done. We're going to go ahead and build each one. If this is the first time you're doing it, it's going to take a while to do them. Okay. At this point, if you really wanted to, you could delete these files. So let's say you didn't want them to be here. You could highlight them all, right click, and hit delete. Just do not check mark this option. But I'm not going to do it because I want to use this as an example. These are the core system projects that you're going to be using. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave them in there in order to use them on our sample project. So we'll go to import CCS project, and we're going to import a GPIO blink. You know, the typical little examples they give. We're going to follow this directory. We're going to go to our StarterWare, build ARMv7 ACGT, AM33, whatever, BeagleBone, and then GPIO. So right there, we'll click it just to highlight it and hit OK. Make sure it's check marked and hit finish. You'll see it pop up here. We'll close this one because we're done with it. And we'll take a look at the file that's in here, GPIO ledblink.c. Let's go ahead and open it up. Now I'm going to open it up full screen for my viewers to see a little easier. Within this file, you'll see it is made by TI, as you can see, and it is used for this, so and so and so and so. This is the brief description. But what we're going to do is I'm going to point a few things out. When you want to include some APIs that are within a header file, you're going to include the header file here. You can find these files in here. In this case, GPIO v2.h is under platform. Right here. And you would double click that and it would take you here. And you could see all the definitions. Or if you want a shortcut so you don't have to look for it manually like I just did, because as you can tell it's time consuming, you can right click for it, search for the text in your workspace, and it'll tell you everywhere it's located. So we have it once under drivers, we have it again in our project. But there's different ways of searching. Let's say you wanted to see where it's referenced in, you could see it in your workspace as well. Or if you want to see where it's declared in. But your best bet is to look for its text. So that should give you an idea of where to look for it. So if you really wanted to, you can copy this header file and make your own project. And then you can copy the C file that is tied to this header file, and you copy it as well into a project, and then just build it manually. And you don't have to do everything separate, create libraries and do everything. But this is to make your life easy. You want to make sure if you're using the API, you might as well use it correctly, the way it was intended to be used. So we'll continue. So this is the header file we're going to be using. Now, we'll start by looking back at the user guide. So as you can tell, the first function it calls is GPIO1 module clock config. And you're going to notice something interesting. You'll notice that it isn't told where to use here. It doesn't even show up here. This is why example files are very important to take a look at. So here under where it says functional clocks for the required GPIO instance, you don't need to do this because there's actually if you understand what's going on and you've taken a look at, maybe skimmed over the technical reference manual, you'll understand what's going on here. But now, let's say you didn't, but you want to reverse engineer what's already there. We'll go back to Code Composer and we'll see where this is defined at. So we'll find the declaration in our workspace, and you'll see that it is called under GPIOC GPIO1 module clock config. So if you double click it here, it's going to take us to that file, and it's under platform. As you can see, when we call this function, it's going to do the following. It's going to expand this macro. Essentially, all it's doing is it's writing to the clock module, you see, and it's checking to make sure that it does it here, and so and so. So you can actually look through these files and see what everything is doing, and we'll continue looking through it. This is another one that isn't defined in the user guide. It just gives you a description of what to do. You can edit these files how you wish, which is why they're released as source code rather than libraries, and use them for your personal use. So you can skim around in the code to see what everything does. You can see there's a delay here. Anyways, let's say we're done skimming through the code and you say, you know what, I want to test this out. Well, unfortunately, as it is, you may have trouble. Not every program does, but in my experience, the first time I tried compiling it, I was here for hours because something wasn't configured right. So let's go ahead and configure that now. We'll save our project, and then we'll go to the project folder here, right click, and we'll hit properties. You're going to want to make sure that you've selected the BeagleBone Black. You're also going to want to make sure that the command link, the linker command file is set to GPIO LED blink. Now, I've made a copy of this file and I've saved it as BeagleBone Black. And I've saved it somewhere that I can always access it. So if you wanted to do what I did, let's say you wanted to put it somewhere you're going to use it often. We'll go locate this file right here. This file is located here. So we'll start off with our StarterWare, build, follow through like this. It is here, and I'm gonna copy this file. Now they are different here, so I'm gonna copy this file, and I'm gonna place it way at the beginning of my StarterWare directory because I plan on using it often. And I'm gonna rename it. I'm gonna call it BeagleBone Black, bbb.cmd. Now we can come in here, hit browse, go to our StarterWare, and find this bbb.cmd file. We can hit OK, and it's going to successfully build. We've already built these libraries, so if I hit right click and build, it should build with no error. Now let's check if it did, and the build was successful. Everything was done. If you wanted to continue this and put it, let's say, on a micro SD card to use on the BeagleBone, that is perfectly fine. The only thing is, you're not done after this. This was a pre-configured little example. So in this case, when we built it, it actually went into a folder in StarterWare called binary. So if you come in here, it's going to look identical to the build, but the binary folder stores all the exported files that you've already built. Basically your binary version of your file. So in this case, we were building as debug, so it should be in debug, and you can see we have the file here. We cannot use this file directly on the BeagleBone. On my next video, I'm going to explain how to use this file in order to upload it to the BeagleBone through the SD card. Stay tuned for that. Hopefully this gave you a decent understanding of StarterWare so that you can start writing code, and I've hopefully convinced you to read the documentation. So hopefully in future videos we'll make our own little project as an example instead of using the one that was predefined by Texas Instruments. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. If you have the ability to, please consider a donation, because it is very hard to make these videos with a small amount of compensation YouTube has. So if you find my videos useful, consider a donation. If you can't, then that's perfectly fine. Take a look at my website. My website is projectsbb.com. Here you'll find many useful things such as tutorials on how to use Code Composer and hopefully projects pretty soon. But I gotta get a good foundation before we get some really interesting projects going on. Well, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys subscribe and are interested in more videos. If you guys have any comments, let me know below. Hopefully I can answer your questions, and maybe some feedback would be helpful as well. Thank you guys again. Bye.